Business is all about making connections. But some connections are easier to make than others. With a CNN partner hotel, the world is always at your fingertips. CNN partner hotels, connected to your world.
Welcome to Times Square.
Yes! This is a place you can come and talk to cats.
I knew you were going to like this. We have a great show planned tonight.
I thought you would have been fired by now.
I thought you would have turned on me by now.
Well,
this is an incredible community that we've built up together.
You are here with us, and we are with you.
Pep it up, everybody. It's New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve Live with Anderson and Andy on CNN.
I'm Larry Madowo in Nairobi, Kenya, and this is CNN.
The U.S. president says he's angry over disputed claims from the Kremlin. This is what we know. It could be a major blow to hopes to bring an end to Russia's war with Ukraine. U.S. President Donald Trump says he's very angry about an allegation by the Kremlin that Ukrainian drones targeted one of Russian President Vladimir Putin's residences. Have a listen.
You know, it's a delicate period of time. This is not the right time. It's one thing to be offensive, because they're offensive. It's another thing to attack his house. It's not the right time to do any of that, and can't do it. And I learned about it from President Putin today. I was very angry about it.
Well, Kyiv is rejecting that claim by Moscow. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling the allegation another lie from the Kremlin and an attempt to undermine diplomacy. Mr. Trump described the call he had earlier with President Putin as productive. He says a few very thorny issues remain in the negotiations, but he didn't actually elaborate. The discussion followed a Sunday meeting at Mar-a-Lago between President Trump and President Zelensky. Our Fred Van joins me now from Berlin with more. So, Fred, let's start off then with that claim that we're hearing from the Kremlin. What more do we know? What is the Kremlin? What light are they shedding? Any proof at all at this stage?
Well, the Kremlin is saying that all this happened overnight and in the early morning hours from the 28th to the 29th and happened in the Novgorod area of Russia. I would say it's about 2/3 of the way from Moscow to St. Petersburg, which actually in the past has been an activity where Ukrainian drones have struck, but mostly oil and gas, or pretty much always oil and gas infrastructure that the Russians have a great deal of up in that region. And the Russians are saying, depending on reports, Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, is saying 91 Ukrainian drones were involved. The Russian military is saying that it shot down well over 40 Ukrainian drones. However, the Russians are saying that no one was injured in all of this and that all of the drones that were flown there were taken down. Now, the Russians have indeed not shown any video of that area, of any of the possible drones that were taken down. But at the same time, they do say that they are going to revise the way that they deal with the Ukrainians, the negotiating that has been going on, specifically, of course, with the Trump administration, trying to find a way out of the conflict in Ukraine, and also a key that there will be retaliation by the Russians, of course, seeming to indicate that there could be big missile and drone strikes coming up. And that was one of the things, of course, that Volodymyr Zelensky said as well. He denied that the Ukrainians were behind any of this, that they flew a drone strike or drone strikes on a residence of Vladimir Putin, but also claimed and accused the Russians of trying to find a pretext for further drone and missile strikes on Ukraine, specifically possibly on the capital, Kyiv. Isa.
Zelensky saying on X, Russia is at it again, using dangerous statements to undermine all achievements of our shared diplomatic efforts. He said this alleged residence strike story is a complete fabrication intended to justify additional attacks against Ukraine and to undermine diplomacy. Let's talk about diplomacy, because this claim by the Kremlin comes, of course, after Sunday's meeting between President Zelensky and President Trump, where progress seems between both men seems to be being made. Almost there is what we keep hearing. Talk to us about the last 10%. They said about 90% there. Where are the challenges right now?
Yeah, 90% or over 90%. And President Trump, of course, said when he was standing next to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that some very thorny issues still remain. The Ukrainian president said that essentially there were still two major issues. One of them is the future of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. That, of course, is on Ukrainian territory, which is held by the Russians. The Ukrainians obviously want to know what the future of that is, where the energy from that power plant is going to go. That's an issue that apparently hasn't been fully dealt with yet. But the big one is, of course, possible territorial concessions by the Ukrainians, specifically the Donbas and Donetsk Oblast in the east of Ukraine, where the Ukrainians apparently over the past couple of days, and specifically Volodymyr Zelensky, seems to be more open to the idea of territorial concessions, but at the same time said that all of that would require a referendum in Ukraine for the Ukrainian people to have their say in all of that. For that, the Ukrainians say there needs to be this ceasefire, and the Russians are saying a ceasefire, a temporary ceasefire, is not going to happen because they believe the Ukrainians would use that to regroup. So certainly some very, that's certainly probably the most thorny issue of them all. On the question of security guarantees, which are absolutely key, the Ukrainians say, for them, essentially Volodymyr Zelensky has said that the details have been hammered out. The big question right now is the duration of those security guarantees. Apparently the Americans, this is what the Ukrainians are saying, offered up 15 years for these security guarantees. The Ukrainians want longer than that. They say they want 30, 40, or even 50 years because they say, look, the current conflict has already been going on for over 10 years. And so they'll say they want security guarantees for a lot longer than that. And they say decades into the future would probably be necessary, Isa.
Very briefly, just on that last point, Fred, did we ever hear from the Americans on the possibility of the 30, 40, 50 years that Zelensky's proposing, allegedly proposing here on security guarantees?
Yeah, so far we've not heard from President Trump whether or not that's going to be a possibility. We know from President Zelensky, from the Ukrainian president, that those 15 years were floated. One of the things, however, that the Americans are saying is they say that the Europeans are obviously going to have to play a big role in those security guarantees, so that duration could be different as far as the Europeans are concerned, who of course have been very staunch allies of the Ukrainians, especially the Germans, the French, and the Brits. However, the Trump administration is saying that the security guarantees that it's willing to participate in are almost as good, they say, as being a member of NATO. Platinum security guarantees, I think, is what the Trump administration has called them. So they say these are strong guarantees, but of course the duration is going to be a big issue for the Ukrainians.
Yes, I forgot about the platinum security guarantees that was said just before Christmas. Fred, as always, thanks for the reminder. Good to see you. Now to Florida, where President Trump is hosting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at his Mar-a-Lago resort this hour, and they are discussing efforts to push forward the Gaza ceasefire, as well as challenges involving Iran, Lebanon, Syria, and much more. President Trump says he hopes to reach phase 2 of the Gaza deal very quickly, insisting again that Hamas must disarm, something he has repeatedly vowed not to do. Mr. Trump has also said he believes reconstruction in the Gaza will begin pretty soon. He made those comments, of course, in the last hour or so. The International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant for Prime Minister Netanyahu over alleged war crimes in Gaza, but the US does not recognize the court's jurisdiction. President Trump had high praise for him, his longtime ally. Just have a listen to this.
The relationship's been extraordinary, and Bibi's a strong man. He can be very difficult on occasion, but you need a strong man. If you had a weak man, you wouldn't have Israel right now. Israel would have been, Israel with most other leaders would not exist today.
Matthew Chance is following developments from Jerusalem, and high praise indeed, Matthew. Probably very well received by Netanyahu and his cabinet, with elections just around the corner. What are they looking to get out of this meeting?
Well, that's certainly a part of it. I think that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, wants to, kind of underline the close friendship that he has, made sure that he's got with President Trump, because it's an electoral asset for him here in Israel domestically. Trump is very popular in Israel. Netanyahu faces the possibility of an election within the next 10 months, possibly significantly sooner than that. And having Trump at his side and in his corner is seen as an electoral boon that could win him votes and potentially see him winning the election as well. And so that's one thing he wants out of this meeting in the sort of more medium term. In the shorter term, though, I think there's an anxiety on the part of Benjamin Netanyahu about President Trump's desire to move as quickly as possible into the second phase of his much vaunted peace plan for Gaza. The first phase has already been underway. The hostages have been released, all but one. And the second phase is a much more difficult phase. For a start, for Hamas, because it means Hamas would have to surrender its weapons and surrender its power. But also difficult concessions for Benjamin Netanyahu as well, because in that second phase, Israel would be expected to withdraw from territory inside Gaza and also basically give up control, hand over control of it to an international stabilization force, which is yet to be sort of agreed upon. But US officials have been working very hard behind the scenes to try and create the conditions for that to happen, because Trump sees that second phase and the peace plan in general as the centerpiece of his foreign policy, to sort of create a lasting peace in the Middle East. And he very much wants to get it advanced as much as possible. But as I say, there's a great deal of skepticism about those Israeli concessions from Netanyahu and, of course, from his right-wing coalition, which keeps him in power. So a bit of reluctance and foot dragging from the Israeli Prime Minister on that issue. There's also the outstanding issue of the last remaining Israeli hostage, Ran Gavili, whose remains have not yet been handed over by Hamas. Hamas says that it can't find those remains at the moment. The parents of Gavili are in Florida right now with Benjamin Netanyahu. They've already met with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and the Secretary of State Marco Rubio. They're expecting to meet Trump as well. And US officials have already told them that finding Ran Gavili, his remains, is a priority for them. President Trump spoke about it in that sort of shoulder-to-shoulder press briefing before the talks began. The parents of Ran Gavili don't want the second phase of Trump's peace plan to go ahead until the remains of their son have been brought home. And, this is an obstacle to the advance into the second phase. But it's a very convenient obstacle, both for Hamas and for the Israeli government, both of which are sort of reluctant for this second phase to begin because of the painful concessions that each side would be expected to make. And so it's a potential point of contention between Trump and Netanyahu. They've got other issues they want to talk about as well: Iran, Lebanon, Syria to some extent. But it's that Gaza issue where we could see some friction emerge.
Matthew Chance for us in Jerusalem this hour. Thanks very much, Matthew. President Trump says the U.S. has significantly stepped up its military campaign against drug trafficking in Venezuela. In a radio interview on Friday, Mr. Trump claimed the U.S. has struck a drug production facility in Venezuela. But there have been no reports about that from Venezuela and no confirmation of the attack from the Pentagon. Still, just a short time ago, the president repeated his claim. Just have a listen.
Yeah, there was a major explosion in the dock area where they load the boats up with drugs. They load the boats up with drugs, so we hit all the boats, and now we hit the area. It's the implementation area. That's where they implement, and that is no longer around.
Let's get more then on this. Senior national security reporter Zachary Cohen is looking into all of this. So, Zach, what have you found? Because there's more questions than answers at this stage.
Yeah, details are very hard to come by still at this moment, but Donald Trump pressed on those comments he made during the radio interview last week, where he alluded to some sort of a U.S. military operation or U.S. kinetic operation targeting a drug facility inside Venezuela itself, which of course would mark a significant escalation in this ongoing U.S. campaign around Latin America that's really been resigned to striking those alleged drug boats in international waters, both in the Caribbean and in the eastern Pacific Ocean. But Donald Trump has been threatening to conduct strikes against targets on land inside Venezuela for several weeks now, as this pressure campaign against Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro has been escalating. And Donald Trump appearing to reveal for the first time in that interview on Friday that the U.S. had carried out an operation against a target on land, which he said today was against a target, a dock facility of sorts on the shore, along the shore of Venezuela, where he claims that drug smugglers were essentially using it to load and offload drugs that would effectively be transited to the U.S. and around the world. But still, it's the silence around this, both from other U.S. officials and agencies, as well as from the Venezuelan side of the equation, is is interesting. And it's raised the question of who, whether it was the U.S. military or one of the U.S. intelligence agencies, who carried out this supposed strike. Our Kevin Liptak asked President Trump during that press conference today directly, was it the U.S. military or was it the CIA or another agency that has those capabilities? And Donald Trump wouldn't go there. He said he didn't want to say, but he knew exactly who was responsible for this strike. So details will undoubtedly begin to emerge in the coming days as we'll continue to push on this. But it's interesting that Donald Trump does seem to have taken that next step in escalating this campaign by conducting a strike against a target on land inside Venezuela rather than just international waters.
Yeah, that'll be quite an escalation if true. Zach, I know you'll stay on top of this. Thank you very much indeed. And coming up after this short break, British boxer Anthony Joshua is injured in a car crash in Nigeria. We'll have a live update just after this.
In the hub, where East meets West, CNN Arabic is perfectly placed to find the facts. This is where stories happen.
It's a concern to a lot of us in the region.
Politics, business, culture, real life. As the pace of change moves faster, we ask the important question: what is the truth? This is CNNArabic.com.
We're keeping low here because we've been told the Houthis might be able to see us.
We are aware that we were abandoned.
When the settlers are here and threatening you, what's going through your mind?
I can't explain it.
We all just want to take our territory back. Nothing will bring us back what we lost.
It's a wheel of genocide, he says. This is what liberation looks like.
Amazing! CNN World Sport.
Non-stop action year-round.
I have a lot of things to give to the football.
All the major events.
I love where the game is going right now.
What does it take for me to be even better?
And tournaments.
The emotions sometimes are impossible to control.
The latest highlights.
Women's sport is having a moment that it should have always had.
And exclusive interviews with your favorite coaches and players.
We're going to keep this thing rolling.
You rock.
Don't miss
CNN World Sport, only on CNN. CNN Academy is turning 5. From Abu Dhabi to the world, we're empowering the next generation of global journalists.
Welcome to CNN Academy. We have 140 students from all around the world.
We've delivered more than 1,000 hours of immersive learning and hands-on training.
It's been an incredible week.
Partnering with leading media organizations and universities from across the world, we bring the newsroom to the classroom. Find out more at academy.cnn.com.
Let's talk business. This is Marketplace Middle East, where we update you on the latest financial moves across the region, from Dubai to Saudi Arabia, Oman to Egypt. Discover what is transforming the region's economic landscape. Join me for the latest trends and innovations, making investing in the Middle East more attractive.
Marketplace Middle East, this weekend on CNN.
I got your cappuccino, Indy. You're not listening.
You're buying chinos, sweetie? Love that for you.
What are you looking at?
I'm getting tons of DMs about New Year's Eve. Like, who's your dream celebrity guest?
Madonna.
Oh, I have a relative in Kenya who needs money.
That sounds sketchy.
Whoa.
What's their question?
It's more of a statement.
Wow. People send you those?
If you ask for it.
New Year's Eve Live with Anderson and Andy on CNN.
Welcome back, everyone. Nigerian police say British boxing star Anthony Joshua has been injured in a car crash that killed 2 other people. This social media video, have a look at this, shows him being helped from the wreckage. You just see him coming out of the SUV. It happened Monday morning on the busy Lagos-Ibadan expressway. Joshua, being told, suffered only minor injuries, though as you can see his grin, he's clearly in pain. The boxer was born in Watford in England to Nigerian parents, and he has close family ties in Nigeria. Authorities have not identified thus far the people killed in the incident. We are lucky to have Larry Maduro here with us. Larry, just talk us through, first of all, what we know about this accident. What happened? Do we have details on that yet?
We know a bit more based on what Nigerian authorities have said. He was driving on the Lagos-Ibadan expressway.
Was he driving? Was he a passenger?
He was not driving. He was in the back seat of the car. And we've seen the video of the wreckage, and it's in a pretty bad shape. It's badly mangled. 2 people died in this accident. The driver and a passenger. We're told they're foreigners, though their identities have not been made public. And Anthony Joshua was in the back of the car. We see him getting pulled out, and a crowd gathers. They identify him immediately, say, Anthony Joshua, Anthony Joshua. And he's walked over to a police car where they sent him to the hospital for treatment. And a lot of people paying attention to what happened here. They say, according to the Nigerian Federal Road Safety Corps, they were speeding and they were overtaking when they lost control and crashed into a stationary truck that was parked on the side of the road.
And I think that's the truck we were just looking at, right, when you were talking, we bring it up.
Absolutely.
But, so three people inside that car. He was in the back seat. Assume 3 people.
There were 4 people.
Four people. So
he and one other person survived this accident. 2 people were killed in that accident.
Right. So currently in hospital, do we know how they are doing, how Anthony's doing at this stage? What are we hearing from Nigerian authorities on that?
Nigerian authorities say he was treated and he does not need any further treatment. He was responding well to treatment, had minor injuries, and one other person who survived as well. We don't know how he's currently doing.
Yeah.
And these 2 people who were sent to a morgue who were killed in it, they've not been identified at this stage. But a really tragic accident.
Absolutely.
And people point out, for instance, that there was no immediate ambulance available to take him to a hospital. That is a police car. He's sitting in the front of the car when he's being driven off.
I mean, it's amazing. You can still, when he got out the car, that he was he was clearly in pain, but the fact that he's walking...
He's in a daze, as you can see from that video.
Completely
he's
dazed.
in pain, and also it's like a whole... it's kind of a circus in that moment, and he's still trying to figure out what happened to his friends in that moment.
In a state of shock, no doubt. He is a huge name, not just in UK, but in Nigeria, much loved. Give us some sort of the response of what we're hearing from some of the voices within Nigeria.
There's been a lot of shock at something happening to somebody as famous and iconic as Anthony Joshua. This is what they call in Nigeria happening to you, when some of the dysfunction in the country hits you, and even your money cannot save you, cannot help you rise above it. And because he knocked out Jake Paul just about a week ago, there's extra interest in what happened to him, and the fact that he was driving on this road and gets involved in an accident that leads to the death of 2 people. There's been a lot of criticism, for instance, of the Nigerian Federal Road Service Corps saying they were speeding and overtaking and then lost control. They're like, how did you figure that out so quickly? This is just a few hours after the accident.
But no footage has been provided, right, so far?
They have no footage. There was no speed cameras as far as we know on that road, so it's not clear how they knew that they were speeding or they were overtaking dangerously. But they say overspeeding and careless overtaking are 2 of the major causes of fatalities on Nigerian roads.
And we know that the president has also put out a statement about, he had a conversation, right, with his mother, is that right?
Right. President Bola Tinubu posted a message of sympathy and support. He's, again, much beloved in Nigeria, much beloved across the continent. And so the messages of support are coming from all across the country.
Yeah, well,
and people wishing him well and praying for him.
Yeah, wish him well, not just him, but the other person who, of course, is in hospital, is recovering. Our thoughts and prayers are the other 2 people who unfortunately have lost their lives in this accident. I know you're still across, so thank you, Larry. What a treat to have you here on the show. Come back more often. Still to come, it is a place to be seen for foreign leaders, a look at international players visiting Donald Trump in Florida when we come back.
Tomorrow Transform, in association with NX Nippon Express.
Experts in this area believe that solar power will underpin the world's transition away from fossil fuels. One of the major bottlenecks is in the composition of a solar cell. Commercial solar cells are made from silicon, but another crucial ingredient is silver, a precious metal, expensive and rare. Vince Allen put his mind to this problem while studying at the University of New South Wales. When he cracked it, he put his PhD on hold to launch his own company, SunDrive.
To turn a bare silicon wafer into a finished solar cell, about half the cost is just the use of silver. So it's actually the most expensive solar cell production step. Copper is 100 times cheaper per kilogram, 1,000 times more abundant. In 2021, we also made the world's most efficient solar cell, so it's also performance enhancing as well.
What connects the Venus de Milo, the Mona Lisa, a frozen mammoth, and Japan? One Japanese logistics company making the impossible possible. Nippon Express. Since our founding in 1937, we have handled some of the world's most sensitive cargo. We are known for our reliability and meticulous attention to detail, bringing a piece of Japanese sensibility wherever we go. Logistics isn't simply a business to us, it's a craft. We take pride in bringing new value to society. With this spirit, Nippon Express has grown into a global network, operating in more than 50 countries across Asia, Europe, and the Americas. No matter the challenge, we are committed to finding solutions for our customers. When faced with the impossible, we never say no. We are NX Nippon Express. We find the way.
はい、皆さんこんにちは、小島秀夫です。ハッピーニューイヤー。良いお年を。
This is One World.
The world's top headlines with some of the world's biggest players.
Stories that captivate from two unique perspectives.
What does that mean for wider escalation?
One World with Zain Asher and Biana Golodriga. Weekdays on CNN.
If you can keep your head when markets all around you are losing and you can't see a way through. If you can trust your instincts on when to buy, sell, or wait, and don't be tired by the waiting. If you can trade and not make money your master, meeting triumph and disaster in equal measure. If you can run with the bulls and not be afraid of the bears, treating both impostors the same. For when we come together, we will make sense of it all. And then the business world will be yours and all that is in it. And what is more, my friend, you will be profitable. For you are indeed watching Quest Means Business.
I'm Hanako Montgomery in Tokyo, and this is CNN.
Welcome back, everyone. A 17-acre resort for the rich has become the center of international diplomacy in recent days. Donald Trump invited the leaders of both Ukraine and Israel to Mar-a-Lago for talks aimed at ending the violent conflicts that have plagued their two countries. Trump seems to be gambling that his power of persuasion can score him a high couple of foreign policy wins that have seemed impossible, of course, for others. So what we want to know is, can President Trump get a foreign policy breakthrough at Mar-a-Lago? Joining me now is Kim Dozier, CNN's global affairs analyst. Kim, great to have you back on the show. Plenty for us to discuss, but let me start first of all with our top story this hour and some of these claims by the Kremlin that Ukraine has so far vehemently denied that Ukrainian drone attack targeted one of President Putin's residence on Monday. Your reaction, do you buy this, or do you think this is part of the Putin playbook here?
It is highly unlikely that the Ukrainians would do something so tone deaf. They have, up till now, concentrated on hitting energy, military targets, and have scrupulously stayed away from hitting civilian areas. Whereas night after night, day after day, the Russians have bombed in the center of Kyiv. Across the country, they've hit things like hospitals, train stations, as well as energy depots and transmission stations. And yet, we only hear from President Trump a criticism of this alleged strike by Ukraine on one of Putin's homes. It kind of it beggars belief, and for the Ukrainians, they're immediately denying it and denouncing it and saying we haven't done that. But it seems that Trump believes Putin and has already criticized the Ukrainians, which is a bad place to be at this stage of the negotiations.
Yeah, look, and we heard from President Trump just before he walked into Mar-a-Lago next to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and his words were that he was very angry about it, but no evidence, I think it's important to point out, no evidence was ever provided by the Kremlin. So, let's talk about the timing of this comment and this claim by the Kremlin, Kim, because very often the timing is so important, right? This comes off the back of a meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky, of course, the weekend, where we had both optimism and uncertainty being projected. What did you make of the progress so far? Because they said the plan was, just over 90%, almost 90% complete, but yet no breakthrough. Do you see progress here?
Well, you have Zelensky talking about making concessions in almost every major area. He is willing to hold a presidential election. He is willing to give up parts of the Donbass, though suggesting it becomes a demilitarized zone and requiring that Russian troops withdraw as well as Ukrainian troops withdrawing. And we see him basically coming to Mar-a-Lago to assure President Trump that he believes and will follow through with these goals. And yet, President Trump still says things like Putin wants peace, when nobody in the Western world or any analysts looking at the conflict like me can see any measure of proof of that. All you've had coming out of the Kremlin, from Putin's own commentary, is that, well, if the Ukrainians won't give up everything that we insist on, we'll just take it by other means. We'll just go back to war and complete this military operation. Yet you don't see President Trump criticizing that. So to have this kind of an incident be reported right now, it puts paid to some of the hopes that, Zelensky is building momentum, that he has Trump at least on his closer to his side and closer to giving, say, the security guarantees that would make it possible for President Zelensky to sign off on this and take a change in the borders to his own population to be voted on.
Let's turn to the other conversation, other meeting, of course, taking place in Mar-a-Lago. It's happening, I believe it's still happening right now, between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. I'm not sure whether you heard them talking before they walked in. President Trump said of Bibi, he's done a phenomenal job, and I'm paraphrasing here, said Israel wouldn't exist without his leadership, saying he should be pardoned, which then, kind of took me by surprise when I read Aaron David Miller's comment, who said Trump's comments before meeting with Netanyahu, Kim, he said, was a veritable re-elect Bibi campaign commercial. Great Prime Minister, pardon for Netanyahu on its way. Demilitarization of Hamas a priority. Yes, we'll strike Iran if necessary. A smiling PM looked like cat that swallowed a canary. What are we likely to see come out of this?
I mean, absolutely. The biggest headline there for me was that Trump says that Israel's president has agreed to pardon Bibi. I don't think we knew that. And these are charges that have been hanging over Bibi Netanyahu for years. If Isaac Herzog actually goes through with that, that clears the way for Bibi to run again. The next legislative cycle has elections coming up this October. And it is essentially giving Bibi everything he wants and needs to campaign for the next run. But what we're not hearing, and maybe President Trump is saving this for behind closed doors, is that Bibi has been slow rolling the implementation of phase 2, and that blocks all of President Trump's plans for normalization between Israel and more of the Arab world, and more kind of ammunition in Trump's quiver for going out for the Nobel Peace Prize next year.
Yeah, we haven't heard yet from President Herzog about this, of course. Previously had denied any of this, but of course we'll keep an ear out. But let me ask you about that 20-point peace plan. And this is where things may get somewhat contentious, right? That was agreed in October. How is Netanyahu, how is President Trump, in ability, likely to walk this? Because this, of course, he has staked his legacy on ending, right, and finding a deal. But this is something from Netanyahu. He doesn't want to, his own party from the right-wing extremism within the party don't want to see him concede. In fact, they believe he has conceded too much when it comes to Gaza. So how much pressure or leverage does President Trump apply here?
Well, President Trump does want to see phase 2 implemented, but he says that Hamas has to be disarmed. And Hamas just today reiterated that it will not disarm until Israel withdraws from all of the Gaza Strip. Israel's not willing to do that until Hamas disarms. You've got a catch-22 situation. You also have continuing violence. According to Gaza health officials, more than 400 Palestinians killed. And according to the Israelis, 3 of their soldiers have been killed. So you have this continuing confrontation on the ground that could return back to war unless each side somehow is convinced to take a step back, allow the international peacekeeping force that the UN has endorsed to get deployed, allow Palestinian technocrats to start taking over governing functions. So at this point, it's got to be Trump somehow pressuring Netanyahu behind closed doors to make some sort of move towards phase 2, so that at the very least, the White House can blame Hamas for it all falling apart.
Indeed. And on the pardon, just to clarify here, Kim, just for our viewers right around the world, of course, President Herzog's office has contradicted. He's issued a statement contradicting Trump's account. I'm going to quote here saying there has been no conversation between President Herzog and President Trump since the pardon request was submitted. Herzog spoke with the Trump representative who inquired about the request and received an explanation of the process and that any decision would follow standard procedures. So at least we'll keep an eye on that. We know where the President Herzog stands on this thus far. Kim, as always, great to have you on the show. Kim Dozier there. Now, it is the final moments of trade on Wall Street and stocks are lower. The Dow has been trading in the red through the entire session, as you can see. And this is our Business Breakout. It is a wild end to the year for silver prices. The precious metal has fallen almost 10% to round off a year where the price has more than doubled. Over the weekend, Elon Musk warned about rising silver prices, saying it's needed in many industrial processes. The head of Iran's central bank has been replaced amid fresh economic turmoil and protests. That is according to state TV. Iran's economy has been struggling under the sanctions, with the rial now at record low against the US dollar. Lululemon is in the middle of a boardroom power struggle launched by its former CEO. Chip Wilson says shareholders have lost faith in the board and has nominated 3 new directors to join them. The struggling sportswear brand has already announced the departure of its current CEO, Calvin McDonald. 2025 has been a year of market records, tariff turbulence, and all kinds of corporate controversies. Vanessa Yerkovich runs down the top 10 business stories of the year for you.
Another is facing its own challenges as its CEO goes Doge, and the Oracle of Omaha takes his final bow. These are the top business stories of 2025. Number 10, Warren Buffett retires. In May, a surprising announcement from America's most admired CEO.
The time has arrived where Greg should become the chief executive officer.
Buffett is stepping down after more than 60 years at the helm of Berkshire Hathaway. The famed investor is a towering figure in American finance. Now 95, Buffett said no magic moment sparked the decision. Number 9, a corporate facelift becomes an about face.
I don't like it. I wish that they would keep the way that it is.
A new logo was a no-go for Cracker Barrel. It quickly backpedaled in August after online backlash, even from the Oval Office, expressing outrage at the updated look. The company also canceled restaurant remodels, part of a turnaround plan for the struggling brand. Number 8, Target tanks. It was a walkback of a different kind that put Target in the crosshairs after a rollback of so-called DEI initiatives in January.
it'd be less expensive and a less cost if they would just do right by humanity.
Allow them to see our power.
Foot traffic fell 9% year over year in the next month due to a consumer boycott, another dent to earnings amid slumping sales and tariff pressure. The company still hasn't recovered, and CEO Brian Cornell is stepping down after 11 years on the job. Number 7, Elon goes Doge. It's been a tumultuous year for Tesla, too. Elon Musk's company suffering slumping sales, stock price volatility,
Elon Musk has got to go.
protests, and at times, even vandalism. Consumer backlash was aimed at Musk's work with President Donald Trump's administration as part of the Department of Government Efficiency.
You can't be penalized for being a patriot, and he's a great patriot.
Musk stepped away from the government in May, but despite a rocky year, this fall,
with over 75% voting in favor,
Tesla shareholders showed a vote of confidence in the CEO, awarding him the biggest pay package in corporate history.
If something incredible is done, that compensation should match something incredible was done.
That puts Elon Musk in the express lane to potentially become the world's first trillionaire. Number 6, sticky inflation.
Prices are coming down very substantially on groceries and things.
Despite what the president says, and despite being a major factor in last year's election, inflation is still above 2%.
With tariffs and all the things that are happening, there's a rise in costs.
Consumer sentiment is near record lows as Americans struggle with affordability. Number 5, the K-shaped economy, or America's uneven recovery.
If you're at the top of the K, you're pretty wealthy and you're doing pretty good right now. Stocks are near an all-time high, and that's padding your bottom line. But if you're making less than $100,000, you're not in that category. Inflation is really taking a bite, and you're making some very difficult financial decisions right now.
Higher earners are weathering higher prices by trading down in where they shop, like Walmart. That's propping up spending while lower-income Americans are pulling back. Number 4, a shaky job market.
You can see how bumpy the ride has gotten recently. In fact, we now know that out of three out of the last 6 months, the economy has lost jobs.
The job market is slowing. June, August, and October saw the first losses since the pandemic.
Uncertainty really is the theme for 2025. It's been a big driver for why the economy has slowed down over the course of the year, and it is probably the blocker that is going to prevent hiring from picking up through the rest of the year.
Trump blamed the worse-than-expected job market on the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, firing her in August.
We had no confidence. I mean, the numbers were ridiculous.
He accused her, without evidence, of manipulating the monthly jobs reports for, quote, political purposes. Number 3, the Fed acts.
We begin with our major breaking economic news. The Federal Reserve announcing its decision on whether to make its first interest rate cut this year, and it's happening after months of pressure from President Trump.
Despite months of threats and taunts from President Trump, the Federal Reserve made the first of 3 rate cuts in September. The Fed held rates steady for 9 straight months to assess how President Trump's tariff policy would impact jobs and inflation.
It does lower Fed rates to the lowest level in 3 years.
Interest rates affect what Americans pay for mortgages and other loans. Number 2, Wall Street's roller coaster. Over a single year, the major U.S. indices lost nearly 20% in market value in the spring, then gained it back a few months later.
Stocks in a free fall on President Trump's decision to further escalate his trade war.
Wall Street closed last hour with the Dow above 48,000 for the very first time.
The market madness driven by the president's on and off tariff policy.
A lot of much bigger things are going on, namely AI.
AI is fueling a technology boom and a boom on trading floors, led by NVIDIA, whose market cap is approaching $5 trillion. But AI's meteoric rise is fueling concerns of a bubble burst on the horizon. And number 1, the launch of a historic trade war.
This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, in American history. It's our declaration of economic independence.
With a signature on April 2nd, the United States entered a new era of trade policy, announcing steep tariffs on allies and enemies alike.
The president declared a national economic emergency, and that allows him to really launch what many see as a escalating trade war. This is a historic move.
That historic move, moving markets, sending countries scrambling for new trade deals with the U.S., and stoking concerns for business owners and customers.
As a business owner, you always have uncertainty, but these are things we didn't plan for.
But the U.S. Supreme Court is getting ready to rule on whether Trump's tariffs are legal, a precedent-setting ruling.
The president clearly thinks that the stakes here are massive. He put up on True Social yesterday a post in which he said that this case presents literally life or death for our country.
Vanessa Yurkevich, CNN, New York.
Are you ready to connect to a perfect journey with Turkish Airlines? To feel welcomed and to feel refreshed. To discover unforgettable flavors. To reach new heights of happiness. To connect to a journey that's perfect because of you.
This is Uganda's Bwindi impenetrable forest, one of Africa's most biodiverse ecosystems, home to mountain gorillas once nearly extinct. But thanks to local heroes and communities, their numbers have risen from 300 to nearly 460, a beacon of hope for conservation. Be part of the movement. Find out more on cnn.com/call to earth, in partnership with Rolex and its Perpetual Planet Initiative.
Join me, Larry Medowo, as I introduce you to Africa's trendsetters. See how they use their talent, resources, and passion to make a difference on the continent. This is African Voices Changemakers.
Meet the music execs who are taking Africa's talent worldwide.
It's not just about being viral. It's about building the community and having the culture. If you have a community, you can sustain your career.
African Voices Changemakers on CNN, in association with Glow. Connections across Africa are reshaping business, creating opportunities like never before. On Connecting Africa, follow the network of deals, smart conversations, and people transforming business to bring the continent together.
This month, Connecting Africa through cutting-edge technology.
We are ready. In fact, AI, it's an equalizer for us. It's an evolution.
Connecting Africa, only on CNN, in association with Afrexim Bank. Bring in the new year around the world with celebrations in every city at midnight. New Year's Eve, live on CNN.
Every day we take a step back to look at the big picture. We follow the story as it unfolds and make sure the information is relevant to you. In a world packed with noise, facts matter. That's what we do here. This is The Brief.
We understand there is intense firefights ongoing. Rafah is very close. But in Kim Jong-un, you have a leader who's given a 5-year plan. How do you convince him to talk? It took some time to realize they had come to rescue him.
But it's a roller coaster of emotions.
Millions of people across the U.S. are under winter weather alerts this evening. Here's what it looks like in the state of Michigan. Many homes and towns completely covered in snow. In addition to blizzard-like conditions in some states, others are dealing with ice, thunderstorms, and even tornadoes. This is adding to the travel challenge for millions driving and flying home for the holidays. Our meteorologist Chris Warren joins us now from the CNN Weather Centre. And Chris, I'm hearing from a friend it took her more than 10 hours in terms of delays just coming to the UK.
Yeah, and just to imagine, flights are difficult and driving, Isa, is impossible at times. When you just take a look at this right here, this is from yesterday in Iowa, right in the middle of the U.S., where there were hours and hours worth of heavy snow and very strong winds leading to those whiteout conditions. This is what we're seeing right now. When you look at this map here over the Great Lakes, parts of Michigan, even Wisconsin, and now downwind on the east side of the Great Lakes is where some of the heavier snowfall and higher snowfall totals are still expected. So that video we were just looking at, more conditions like that are possible, especially in areas where you have and you see the darker purple colors here near Erie and Cleveland. And this is the kind of weather where you can be driving along, it's just cloudy, then all of a sudden like hitting a curtain of white snow just coming down. Extremely dangerous. Snow squall to do that for you as well. And there are some snow squall warnings right now between Cincinnati and Erie, with some of these winds, just even if there's not a lot of snow falling out of the sky, will blow that snow around. In Buffalo, we did see a wind gusting to 127 kilometers per hour, the strongest wind gusts there in 45 years. And this here in pink is where there is expected to be more impactful weather. Winter storm warnings posted here with the potential again for more whiteout conditions and even some ice. Not as much ice as we saw earlier. And we talk about ice, freezing rain. That's when rain, still water in its liquid form, hits something and freezes on contact. And if that something is a power line or a tree, that can lead to power outages. And still, in some areas, Isa, we could see snow up to about a foot or so. So we're looking at, once again, very cold air also moving in. Windy conditions, Isa, can lead to some travel problems as well.
Stay warm, stay safe. Chris, appreciate it. We're going to take a short break. Be back on the other side.
News races around the world at breakneck speed.
Once that story aired, it blew up.
It is actually an example of sometimes journalism, it's led to something good.
Amanpour, weekdays on CNN.
How do we connect you with stories from around the globe? We're on the ground to follow the facts. We examine big ideas. We let diverse perspectives flow and ignite conversations that matter most to bring the world to you. Stay in.
Let me take you to Florida now, where President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are speaking.
And what we're looking at and where we want to be, where we want to go. And so I just want to thank you for spending time. I know you're going to be over here for a couple of days, and maybe we'll be surprising us on New Year's Eve. That'll be fine.
Oh, thank you.
And it's wonderful seeing you and Sarah and your whole group. Very talented group. We've done very good work together, and it'll continue. So thank you very much, baby.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. I have to say that in addition to what I said, that we've never had a friend, even close, a friend, as President Trump in the White House. I think he's been extraordinary in his friendship and his support for Israel, his principled positions, his willingness to just cut through and get to the essence of things. And I don't say that as a compliment. I just mean it. People have heard me say that behind your back, Mr. President, many times. But I want to say something else. I think we have a partnership, if I can quote you, second to none. I think it's allowed us to do enormous things. You know, people said there was a different conception at one time, which means that America can advance its interest in the Middle East if it opens a lot of daylight between it and Israel. And President Trump has done the exact opposite. He's achieved remarkable things in the Middle East because we work together. We talk about our ideas. Sometimes we have different ideas, but we work it out. And most of the time we see eye to eye. But it's been a remarkable experience, and this was a very, very productive meeting. And may I say, a very good lunch. Thank you. Thank you for your friendship.
Thank you very much, baby.
And thank you for your support. It's meant from the heart.
Thank you. You know, as I said outside, he's been a wartime prime minister, and we were, well, look, I guess I could say I was a wartime president in more places than just Israel, if you think about it. But Israel was a big factor, and we're with you. and we'll continue to be with you. And a lot of good things are happening in the Middle East. We have peace in the Middle East, and we're going to try and keep it that way. I think we will be very successful in keeping it that way. And you've been a great friend, and I've been a great friend to you and to Israel, and it's been my honor. And the award that I was given was really surprising and very much appreciated.
Well, President Trump has broken so many conventions to the surprise of people, and then they figure out, oh, well, maybe, he was right after all. So we decided to break a convention too, or create a new one, and that is to award the Israel Prize, which in almost our 80 years, we've never awarded it to a non-Israeli, and we're going to award it this year to President Trump. This was announced formally over lunch by our Minister of Education, who's responsible for the Israel Prize. It's going to be awarded to President Donald J. Trump for his tremendous contributions to Israel and the Jewish people. I think it's such a fitting thing, and it would honor us, obviously, Mr. President, if you could visit Israel in that occasion on our Independence Day. But I have to say that this reflects the overwhelming sentiment of Israelis across the spectrum. They appreciate what you've done to help Israel and to help our common battle against the terrorists and those who would destroy our civilization. So, again, that's an expression of thanks and appreciation.
Thank you, baby, very much. That really is a great honor. Any questions, please? We'll go pretty quickly because pretty much we agree on most of the things, and you would know what most of those things are. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to know if you and the Prime Minister talked about having Israel pull back its troops before Hamas fully disarms. I know that's been an issue. Did you push for that today?
Well, we talked about Hamas and we talked about disarmament, and they're going to be given a very short period of time to disarm, and we'll see how that works out. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner will be in charge of that from our side, but if they don't disarm as they agreed to do, they agreed to it, and then they'll be held to pay for them. And we don't want that. We're not looking for that. But they have to disarm within a fairly short period of time.
Is Israel withdrawing its forces?
Well, that's a separate subject. We'll talk about that.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Mr. President, did you have a message for the Prime Minister about the West Bank? And are you at all concerned that Israeli settler violence, could be undermining the peace plan?
Well, we have had a discussion, big discussion, for a long time on the West Bank. And I wouldn't say we agree on the West Bank 100%, but we will come to a conclusion on the West Bank.
If I could ask, what is the disagreement?
Well, I don't want to do that. It'll be announced at an appropriate time. But he will do the right thing. I know that. I know him very well. He will do the right thing. Yes?
There is a growing fear of a confrontation between Israel and Turkey. How are you going to ease this tension given the fact that President Erdogan calls Mr. Netanyahu Hitler and compares Israel to the Nazis?
Well, I know President Erdogan very well. And as you all know, he's a very good friend of mine. And I believe that, and I do respect him, and Bibi respects him, and they're not going to have a problem. They're not going to have a problem. I know him very well. And you've seen me do things with President Erdogan and Turkey that nobody else could have done. We're not going to have a problem. He's done a fantastic job. I'm with him all the way. I'm with Bibi all the way. Nothing's going to happen. Yes.
Mr. President, are you concerned that Israel is not moving quickly enough to phase 2 of the peace plan?
Well, I'm not concerned about anything that Israel's doing. I'm concerned about what other people are doing or maybe aren't doing. But I'm not concerned. They've lived up to the plan. They're strong. They're solid. And sometimes they don't understand when somebody violates something that you want to give them a second chance. Well, we'll give them a couple of second chances. But no, Israel's lived up to the plan 100%. Don't forget, we made the plan possible by taking out Iran. And speaking of Iran, I hope they're not trying to build up again, because if they are, we're going to have no choice but very quickly to eradicate that buildup. So I hope Iran is not trying to build up, as I've been reading, that they're building up weapons and other things. And if they are, they're not using the sites that we obliterated, but they're using possibly different sites. We know exactly where they're going, what they're doing, and I hope they're not doing it because we don't want to waste the fuel on a B-2. It's a 37-hour trip both ways. I don't want to waste a lot of fuel. Okay?
Mr. President, after your last remarks regarding the pardon request of Prime Minister Netanyahu, Herzog office told us that you have not talked after the official request of Prime Minister Netanyahu pardon. Can you clarify to us, did you talk about it?
Which request are you talking about?
With the President Herzog, the Israeli President Herzog. Did you talk with him directly?
President Erdogan?
Herzog. The Israeli President.
So you're talking about pardon?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you got to say that. No, I think he's going to be in great shape. He's a wartime prime minister at the highest level. He's achieved tremendous success. And I'll say it, if you had 8 out of 10 prime ministers in his position right now, or before right now, maybe, you wouldn't have Israel any longer. Israel would not exist. I'd say two of them would, and 8 of them wouldn't. Those are not good odds. You needed a very special man to really carry through and really help Israel through this horrible jam. These are major factions, and it started with our negotiation with Iran. I think it probably started with Soleimani. That was really where you mentioned that today, which started with Soleimani. Bad guy, doing bad things, hurting a lot of people, killing American soldiers and other soldiers. But it started right there, would probably be the starting point. And then from that point forward, but you have a wartime prime minister at the highest level. There could be other wartime prime ministers, but they'd lose. He won. And I think the people of Israel appreciate it. I think a lot of the people in the world appreciate it, actually. And because of that victory, we were able to get peace in the Middle East. If you had a different kind of a personality, if you had a weak person or a stupid person, and there are plenty of both of them, you would not have had success, and you might not have Israel. And you report for Israel. I know you're very proud of it, and you do a great job. You might not have a job because there might not be an Israel right now if you had a different prime minister. That's a big statement, but to me it's a very simple statement to make. I'm looking at Pete Hegseth, and he's sort of nodding. If they don't have a strong prime minister, Pete, you might not have Israel today. I think he'll go down in the record books. And, I was a big help. I'll be honest with you, big help. Somebody said in the room, if you don't have Trump, you needed a proper combination of everything. And if you didn't have that combination, which they had, you would not have an existing Israel right now. And the people of Israel know it. That's why they like me, and it's why they actually like him. He's got a little bit of a love-hate more than I do over there. But you know what? Even the haters have a lot of respect for him. There's a lot of jealousy about him. A lot of jealousy. Jealousy is a bad word. But I believe you would not have Israel right now. So it's a big deal. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, a recent poll showed that as many as half of Gazans would be willing to leave the Gaza Strip if afforded the opportunity to do so. Back in February, you said that all Gazans should be resettled.
I heard that number today, half of Gaza would leave. I've always said it. I said if they were given the opportunity to live in a better climate, they would move. They're there because they sort of have to be. I think it would be a great opportunity, but let's see if that opportunity presents itself. But we're helping the people of Gaza a lot. So is Israel, by the way. So we'll see what happens. But I saw that there was a poll. It was actually more than half the people would leave if they were given the opportunity. And I've been saying that for a long time. To me, it was common sense. So it's interesting.
Why wouldn't countries accept them?
Look, let's not talk about it because we don't want the controversy. Right now, we're helping Gaza. But if they were given the opportunity, I think even higher than that, the group that did the poll is usually, I call them negative pollsters. You have a lot of them. And yet this poll was, I think, very accurate, other than it would be more than half the people if given the opportunity. But they haven't been given that opportunity. So we'll see what happens.
Mr. President, have you reached a point of understanding regarding Syria?
We do have an understanding regarding Syria. Now, with Syria, you know, your new president, I respect him. He's a very strong guy, and that's what you need in Syria. You can't put a choir boy. You can't put somebody that's a perfect person. Everything's nice, no problems in life. You have the opposite there. He's a strong guy. We get along with him great. I can't ask for any more. He's been with us all the way. We had that mishap with ISIS, and he was with us all the way. He was fighting us. You know, he was fighting them. So I hope Israel. I'm sure that Israel and him will get along. I will try and make it so that they do get along. I think they will. Bibi, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah. Well, our interest is to have a peaceful border with Syria. Our interest is to have, and we openly say it, we want to make sure that the border area right next to our border is safe. We don't have terrorists, we don't have attacks, and we also want to secure our Druze friends. And by the way, I think not only the Druze, but other minorities, especially the Christians, should be protected as well in Syria and throughout the Middle East and in Nigeria. In your efforts, we back completely, because Christian communities are beleaguered around the world, and especially in the Middle East, but in parts of Africa too. And we stand for the same thing.
And don't forget, it was President Erdogan that helped very much get rid of a very bad ruler of Syria. That was President Erdogan. And he never wanted the credit for it, but he really gets a lot of credit. Bibi agrees with that. I agree with I mean, I know it. And President Erdogan should get a lot of good credit for what he did. He got rid of some very bad people. And, you know, they've been wanting to do that for 1,000 years with different names, but for 1,000 years in Syria. President Erdogan did it, and we give him a lot of credit. I give him a lot of credit. But I think it's going to work out well between Syria and Israel.
Mr. President, about Lebanon.
Go ahead, please.
The Lebanese government, so what we saw, is not meeting the terms of the ceasefire agreement, has failed to disarm Hezbollah, actually. In your view, should Israel strike the terrorist organization again?
Well, we're going to see about that. We'll see about it. The Lebanese government is at a little bit of a disadvantage, if you think of it, with Hezbollah. But Hezbollah has been behaving badly, so we'll see what happens.
How close are we to another operation of Israel in Iran? You said before the meeting with Netanyahu that you are in support of Israel if the ballistic missile project will take on, and also the nuclear weapon. But after the meeting, after what you know from the intelligence, how close are we to another war with Iran?
Well, I don't want to say that, but Iran may be behaving badly. It hasn't been confirmed. But if it's confirmed, look, they know the consequences. You know, consequences will be very powerful, maybe more powerful than the last time. Yeah. And Iran should have made a deal the last time. I gave them the option. I said, you can make a deal. Do it. I told them, do it. And they didn't believe me. Now they believe me.
Do you have evidence that Iran is behaving badly, and what do you mean by that?
This is just what we hear. But usually, where there's smoke, there's fire. Have you heard the expression?
What do you mean related to the nuclear capability?
Well, no, I'm hearing that they're not nuclear yet, but maybe nuclear too. The sites were obliterated, but they're looking at other sites. That's what I've heard. They're looking. So it'll take a long time. They're not going to go back to where they were, but they have other places they can go. And if they're doing that, they're making a big mistake. Yeah, please. There's no reason for them to do it.
Mr. President, is the United States currently open to engaging in bilateral discussions with Tehran? We're hearing reports from numerous countries that there may be some discussions. Is that something you would support, or something that is happening?
Would.
You would support that?
I would, yes.
Right now. Thank you, sir.
I have been, by the way, before the war, I would support that. I said to him, baby, I said, let's negotiate. And they didn't believe what was going to happen would happen. Yes, ma'am.
On China. So China has been doing naval exercises basically to test encircling Taiwan. Can you explain to us what your acknowledges of that? What do you think about that? Have you had any discussions with China
Well, I have a
about
great
that?
relationship with President Xi, and he hasn't told me anything about it. I certainly have seen it, but he hasn't told me anything about it, and I don't believe he's going to be doing it.
Does it worry you?
No, nothing worries me.
But
Nothing.
you said where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So if you're in circle, if you're doing naval exercises and air
Well,
exercises,
they've been doing naval exercises for 20 years in that area. Now people take it a little bit differently, but in fact larger than they're doing right now. So we'll see. But they've been doing that for 20, 25 years. Yeah.
Mr. President, if you don't see Hamas disarm in that short amount of time that you're giving them, can you tell us what the next steps would be?
It'll be horrible for them. Horrible. It's going to be really, really bad for them. And I don't want that to happen. But they made an agreement that they were going to disarm. And you couldn't blame Israel. By the way, we have other countries that will come in and do it. They said, let us do it for you if they don't. Countries that were with them wanted the deal to be made, agreed that they would disarm, and now if they say they're going to disarm, that's fine. If they say they're not going to disarm, those same countries will go and wipe them out. They don't even need Israel. You know, we have many countries, 59 countries that are in agreement. This is a real peace in the Middle East. And Hamas is a small part of it, but it's still a part of it. But we have 59 countries that signed on, big countries, countries that are outside of the Middle East, as you know the Middle East. They want to go in and wipe out Hamas. They don't want Israel. They don't need Israel. They want to do it because it's the right thing to do, because they were for the deal based on the fact that Hamas pledged, they swore that they were going to disarm. Now, if they're not going to disarm, those same countries will wipe out Hamas. Yeah.
President Trump, do you think that the PA should be involved the day after in Gaza Strip, even in the near future? And the same question to Prime Minister Netanyahu. Do you see a real opportunity that the PA will be in Gaza?
Go ahead, Mimi.
I think President Trump put clearly the conditions of reform that he wants to see in the PA for them to be involved. And I think he put it very clearly what he wants to see, the kind of real reforms, not just perfunctory reforms, but real reforms. Stop pay to slay, change the curriculum in your textbooks, open up, a different society and a different future. If they do it, well, let them, I think it was clear. He put
pretty clear.
He put guidelines that were, by the way, in the Trump plan of 2020. And they were put then in the 20 points. And it's up to them.
Remember this, if we didn't do what we did to Iran, just to make the subject just slightly different, you wouldn't have peace in the Middle East. You wouldn't have a deal signed in the Middle East. You wouldn't have a deal. Because other Arab nations, which are great people, I know them very well, I know them, they're great people, they wouldn't be able to have agreed to peace in the Middle East because you would have had a dark cloud hanging over everything. It wouldn't have been possible. So Iran has been greatly reduced in power, prestige. I don't want to use the word humiliation because, they're trying to build up again. But we can't let them build up because if they build up, there can't be peace in the Middle East. It was a mistake. When they wiped out Iraq and Iran were about the same power. And they fought each other with different names for 1,000 years. And then our country came out and blew up one of those two countries, namely Iraq. And all of a sudden, Iran had the whole Middle East all to itself. But that's not true anymore. That's not true anymore.
Can you tell us something about your plan? Tell us something about your plan to expand Abraham Accords. If you can tell us something about your plan to expand Abraham Accords.
Well, the Abraham Accords are a great achievement of Jared and everybody. It was one of the great achievements. They'll be expanded. Countries are already talking about expanding it, and they'll be expanded fairly quickly. Yeah, please.
Saudi Arabia? Is it still on the table? The normalization.
Saudi Arabia is great. We have a great leader and a friend of mine and a friend of a lot of people. Also an enemy of some people. but those people aren't doing so well. No, Saudi Arabia has been very good as far as I'm concerned. They've done everything that we can ask for.
But normalization with Israel is on the
They're
table?
getting along great with Israel. They will. And at some point, they'll sign the Abraham Accords.
Mr. President, we know. So one of the big domestic tasks ahead of you is to pick a new chairman for the Fed.
Yeah.
You've said that you have one favorite, but you're also doing interviews.
Still do. Hasn't changed. Yeah, I'll announce them at the right time. There's plenty of time.
Are you?
But in the meantime, we're doing numbers that nobody's ever seen. We have $18 trillion coming in. We had a 4.3% GDP. They thought it was going to be 2%. And that's despite the Democrat shutdown. Had the shutdown not occurred, we would have had an extra 1.25. Think of that. We are doing, and also despite the fact that we have a fool at the Federal Reserve. I mean, Biden reappointed him, and it's too bad. You would have thought he wouldn't have done that. But he's an absolute fool who's building a new Federal Reserve, or he's doing a renovation of a building. Maybe he's up to $4.1 billion to do a renovation of a few very small buildings. It's the highest price in the history of construction. He's spending more money than any building has ever spent per square foot on the renovation of, as an example, I'm doing a magnificent, big, beautiful ballroom that the country has wanted, the White House has wanted for 150 years. It's a massive job, and it's a tiny fraction of that number. And we're under budget and ahead of schedule. Now, it's bigger than I told you. After realizing we're going to do the inauguration in that building, it's got all bulletproof glass. It's got all drone, they call it drone-free roof. So drones won't touch it. It's a big, beautiful, safe building. But it's a big project. For a tiny fraction of that, we're under budget and ahead of schedule. And they've wanted it for 150 years. Think of it, the Federal Reserve building, 2 buildings there, they don't know what they're doing. They're way over budget. I mean, this was built during the Biden administration. And I rode by it the other day, and it's headed by the head of the Federal Reserve. Too late, too late, Powell. Too late because he's always too late with interest rates, except before the election. He was too early because that would have helped. That was supposed to help get her elected. It had no impact. We won all 7 swing states. But no. We're thinking about bringing a suit against Powell for incompetence. Because think of it, these aren't outstanding buildings. These are small buildings. He said $4 billion more. It's going to end up costing more than $4 billion. $4 billion. It's the highest price of construction. Again, Democrats, highest price of construction per square foot in the history of the world. There's never been. Gorgeous monuments are built for a much smaller price. So we're thinking about bringing a gross incompetence, what's called gross incompetence lawsuit. It's gross incompetence against Powell. And it was his baby. And the guy's just incompetent. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. He's just a very incompetent man. But we're going to probably bring a lawsuit against him. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Bibi, congratulations.
Mr. President, when do you expect an announcement then on Powell's replacement?
January sometime.
And will you ask Jay Powell to resign from the board entirely?
He'll be a favor to the nation. But he's come close. I mean, we're getting pretty close. I would fire him. I'd love to fire him, but we're so close, maybe maybe I still might.
Will you sell F-35 to Turkey?
Say it?
Are you going to approve a sailing of F-35 to Turkey?
We're thinking about it very seriously.
And what is your reaction to this?
They'll never use it on
okay?
I promise they'll never use it on
Thank you,
Press.
I'm Paula Newton in New York, and you have been watching a press conference from Mar-a-Lago, the president's residence there in Florida, along with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It really was a far-ranging discussion yet again. I do want to highlight just that the president was saying there about the Federal
Reserve chair, calling him an absolute fool, and really pinpointing the cost of that Federal Reserve building, something that the president has harped on before, saying it was a $4.1 billion project. In fact, according to CNN, it is a $2.5 billion project that they're in the 7th year of a 9-year build. The president repeated that he would love to fire Jerome Powell, but he is clearly nearly at the end of his tenure, which will happen mid through 2026. We do want to get to the issues in the Middle East there, and perhaps most significant, the president there, along with the prime minister, saying that, in his words, Hamas needs to disarm very soon, or they'll be hell to pay. President Trump, saying it will be horrible for them, not really disclosing exactly what he would do, but indicating that Hamas has a very short time to live up to its obligations according to the peace plan. And he claims that, quote unquote, they could wipe them out, referring to Hamas, saying that there are other countries other than Israel willing to do that. They also did discuss many issues in the Middle East, not just the future of Gaza, but also talked about Syria, Lebanon, and crucially Iran. Our Matthew Chance has been listening in with us, and he joins us now from Jerusalem. I mean, Matthew, you'd have to say, right, that this issue of disarming Hamas, again, in our reporting, has said just recently, really in the last few hours, again, that they have no intention of disarming, that really is the crux of the issue here, if any ceasefire is to move to the next stage.
Yeah, I certainly think it's an important part of it. But remember, in that second phase of Trump's peace plan for Gaza, there are difficult concessions that would have to be made by both sides. And yes, on the side of Hamas, giving up their weapons, essentially surrendering their power, was, always going to be a very difficult step that they were going to be reluctant to take. And indeed, that's where we seem to be right now. And President Trump standing next to Benjamin Netanyahu, saying that there will be consequences if they don't do that. They'll have a short time to disarm, but if they don't, there'll be consequences. But let's not forget that there were difficult concessions that would have had to be made in this second phase by Israel as well. Things like withdrawing from territory in Gaza, like handing over control of the Gaza Strip to an international stabilization force, which has not yet been put together, but about which there is a great deal of skepticism with Benjamin Netanyahu and the right-wing coalition which he oversees, and so it's like both Hamas and the Israeli government of Netanyahu were had this shared interest in the second stage of the peace process not advancing, because they both would have had to make incredibly difficult concessions that neither side actually wanted to make. And so, yes, it's not all on Hamas. Israel has been dragging its feet as well, despite what we heard in that shoulder-to-shoulder press conference.
Yeah, and before I let you go, just quickly, there was significant news on Iran as well. Again, the president threatening Iran if it continues to do, the president wouldn't disclose exactly what kind of intelligence they have about what Iran is up to.
Yeah, he actually seemed, from what I heard, he seemed a little unsure about what Iran was up to, whether it was up to something or not. He said it wasn't confirmed. But what we do know is that Benjamin Netanyahu has traveled to Florida to meet with President Trump, and one of the main things that Netanyahu wanted to talk about was the re-emerging threat of Iran, which he says has been rebuilding its ballistic missile program, which he insists has been rebuilding its nuclear program, to make sure President Trump was on side with him in case, or for the possibility of more military action against that country, because that, for Benjamin Netanyahu, is one of the great bonuses of having such a close relationship with President Trump, that his arch enemy in Iran can be struck with American backing.
And we will wait to see what comes of that. Matthew Chance, grateful to you for listening in with us. Appreciate it. Now, Russia claims Ukraine tried to strike one of President Vladimir Putin's residences with a drone. As a result, Moscow says it will revise its position in peace talks. We're not sure what that means. Ukraine denies the allegation. President Zelensky called it a complete fabrication. He accuses the Kremlin of trying to undermine his talks with President Trump this weekend. Trump said Putin told him about the alleged attack during their phone call on Monday. Fred Pleiken is following developments for us from Berlin. I mean, how do you gauge the call with Putin in terms of, how it went? But it just seemed to me that really those comments on however this went really took a back seat to this drone strike, especially the fact that President Trump seemed to be parroting the Kremlin line on this.
Well, certainly what President Trump said at that press availability there with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu meshes to a great extent with what the Russians said after the call as well. Yuri Ushakov, senior Kremlin aide, he came out after the call a couple of hours ago, and he essentially said the same things, that Vladimir Putin had informed President Trump about this alleged drone strike, that President Trump was shocked. Also speaking about President Trump did there, saying that he stopped the delivery of Tomahawks to the Ukrainians. That's also something that the Russians said in their readout, or what Yuri Ushakov said as well. So certainly to a large extent, the Kremlin and the White House, they're saying the same thing. Now, President Trump did say that it's not confirmed that the strike actually took place, and you've already noted that the Ukrainians are unequivocally denying that any of this took place, that they attacked this residence of Vladimir Putin. The Russians, for their part, are vowing revenge and are saying that they are considering revising, as they put it, their stance on the negotiations. But there was a second part of what the Russians said, which I think is also very interesting. Is on the one hand, they said they were rethinking how they're going to deal with the Ukrainians, but they want to keep the diplomatic process with the United States going. So that's a line that kind of meshes with some of the things that we've been hearing from the Russians in the past, where they've been very skeptical of the Ukrainians, very negative towards the Ukrainians as far as solving the conflict with Ukraine is concerned, but at the same time, of course, very keen on a complete reset of relations between Russia and Iran, noting that that's very important for the Russians, and that certainly seems to be a line that they continue to follow now after this alleged attack and after informing President Trump about it, Paula.
Yeah, and clearly Russia getting what it wants, right? Because they wanted a double track in these negotiations. One would be economic, and the other would be in relation to any kind of peace deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very important point. I think that on the one hand, of course, the negotiations towards an end to the conflict in Ukraine are also very important for the Russians, of course, also for the Ukrainians as well. But that economic dividend, the possible economic dividend, also something that, of course, is a huge carrot that's being dangled out there. And if you look at some of the things that are on the table that apparently the Trump administration has offered, sanctions relief, possible deals in the Arctic, rare minerals, rare earth deals, oil and gas deals, all of these things, of course, could be a huge deal for the Russians. But at the same time, the Kremlin has always made clear that for them, the result that they want to achieve, what they call the goals of their special military operation, still takes precedence about anything else, Paula.
Fred Pleiken, thank you to you, live for us from Berlin. And we will have much more of Quest Means Business after the break. Stay with us.
Words can't explain my feelings. You see the audience are cheering, are happy. I think we just ran a fantastic show. One of the first rock opera show in Arabic.
We are at the heart of the Saudi community.